Welcome to the Underground, the Steel City Underground, the black and gold standard for Pittsburgh Steelers coverage. Now, here's your host, Joe Kuzma and Brian E. Roach.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to a lucky edition of the Steel City Underground podcast. My name is Joe Kuzma, and for all of the little leprechauns that are out there, a tad wee bit of the Irish here with a Mr. Brian E. McRoach or something.
This is the only green I have right now. Is my green bottle. I don't. So I'm just glad I'm not here. You can't be like in the fourth grade and pinch me.
Oh, that's okay. I've not been drinking, folks. I'm just acting a little bit nutty because for other reasons I'm excited. And I'm sure you are too, Brian. And, myself and Terry Fletcher had some things to say about Mitch Trubisky and quarterbacks to kick off the free agency stuff. And we haven't been back around since some of that news dropped from like Monday or early Tuesday. So I don't want to be a broken record here because we got a lot of ground to cover, but we were already just battling the minds were meeting offline here. What do you think about the Mitch Trubisky signing, Brian? I've already said of the free agent. I didn't want any free agent quarterbacks. I'm just going to reestablish my thought process here. But of the guys that were available in free agency, the key word here, not having to make an outlandish trade for, I felt he was the best available.
I don't disagree with that much. Look, I said all along, if they sign a veteran quarterback, it's going to be because it's a team-friendly deal. It's going to be something that they can fit into what they go through. It also will indicate two things: what their view of a potential starter in this draft right now is, meaning they may not look at the guys that are available and say one of them could come in and start day one. I also strongly believe that you sign this guy because you don't have faith in what you have. So that's part of this too.
That's a little different than the way you just phrased it when we were going back and forth. You said specifically they didn't have faith in Mason Rudolph.
Well, if you don't have faith in what you have, that includes Mason Rudolph.
See, that's the way I was feeling, and this is the same thing I said with Mason Cole, who's another of the day one guys that I personally don't want to be a broken record over, but that was like, and some people were picking up on this, by the way, that maybe with the other additions, we'll get to them in a second, maybe it's not faith in Kendrick Green you're worried about, maybe it has a lot to do with Kevin Dotson. Yeah. Now with the quarterbacks, you were going hot take city over here. Now that I got the spotlight on you, you got to repeat it.
I'll go hot take city. I think that it states very clearly that they are not enamored of Mason Rudolph as the potential future of the quarterback position. I don't think they have faith that he can take them where they need to go. Do I think that they have faith in Mason Rudolph as a backup? I've believed that all along. He's a guy who could come in, maybe win a couple games, maybe get you through a tough point, but I don't believe that they think he's the guy. I don't think they've ever thought he was the guy, but that's just me. I do think that this is a statement that shows that, but that's just me. Again, I could be wrong. Mm-hmm. I'm never wrong, but I could be.
I'm never wrong.
Someday in the future, it will happen. Well, you see, that just proves my point. Since I'm never wrong and you've said you're never wrong, clearly you're wrong. But that's just how it works. I'm older, therefore I'm right.
I was talking with another colleague of mine who's in your age bracket, and I said, yeah, the guy co-hosts the show with me, he's older than dirt. So
I am older than dirt.
Doesn't make you wiser. Just means you've been doing the same thing wrong over and over for a lot longer.
I don't know about that. But yes, there's some potential truth to that. Anyway, my point is, I think that there is a legitimate chance that Mason Rudolph is not even on the team when training camp comes around. Legitimate chance could be defined as a 5% chance. That's still legitimate. It's less than. It's greater. It's a non-zero chance. Look, I'm not trying to boot Mason out of town. I'm not. I really am not. But I do think signing Mitch Trubisky indicates that you were not happy going into this season with the 1-2 punch of Mason Rudolph and Dwayne Haskins.
That's the key point there, but there's one part of that equation that you hadn't mentioned yet. And I don't think they're going to camp with all three of those guys. Okay. Rudolph,
Maybe.
Haskins, Trubisky. I don't see Trubisky, his projected, standpoint or his stats and everything else. I don't see him as much of an upgrade over Rudolph, and that's why I think they will battle. There's a camp. Now, there's two camp theories to this. Of course, there's like what you're saying, and there's people that are already making Trubisky QB1, and then there's the camp where I'm coming from that says, well, that's undecided right now, and I think some of that may fall on, I've always been of the thought process of let the two guys, Rudolph and Haskins, battle it out. One sucks, let the other play. If you really suck next year, you're drafting higher, you get your quarterback there. And they added Trubisky to this mix, which I think muddies the waters, but I think it muddies it more for Haskins having any potential path to starting at all. And I don't know.
I don't think Dwayne Haskins has a path to start.
Yeah.
I actually don't agree with you on one statement either. I think this is Mitch Trubisky's job to lose right now. I don't think this is a battle until Mason makes it a battle. And if Mason doesn't make it a battle, it's not. He's not the starter.
I'm not sure that I had the full contract details when I was talking about this the other day, but now seeing that he's making like $7 million a year as the base salary. He's not even making like a full $1 million without the incentives. The incentives, which includes winning the Super Bowl. And if that happens, okay, pay the guy and I'll shut my mouth.
Yeah.
My biggest problem with him has been ball security. And, errant throws. He still doesn't throw a whole lot of interceptions. He's been accurate. Is he more athletic? Absolutely. There's no question about that. That's why he's the number 2 overall pick, first quarterback taken. And if he wasn't taken there, if you're saying that the Bears were overshooting on that one, he probably still has gone in the top 15 or 20 anyways.
Yeah,
there's no doubt that year. There's no doubt that year. So it's like you could still say the draft pedigree's there and there's reasons why. But he's not getting paid much more than Mason Rudolph, which is just kind of that lends a little bit to that. I think too many people have just written off Rudolph, and that's why I defend him. And I guess we'll see. I mean, that's all we can do is wait and see. But I don't think Rudolph's necessarily just going to get traded. Who's going to trade for a guy with a year on the contract? They'll just wait for him to get cut, especially if they draft a quarterback, which I don't think they're in the business of doing at all.
I don't think they're drafting a quarterback at all.
Yeah,
I agree with that statement completely.
Some people think, here, Brian, how do you think about the statement bridge quarterback? Because I absolutely hate that. I hate that word. I hate that philosophy and idea. It's just
that's all you have on this roster right now. I mean, look, I get it. Look, they're again, any of these guys, including Dwayne Haskins, could, step up and smack me in the back of the head with a board and surprise the crap out of me, right? Any of those things are possible. But based on past performances, based on what they have done, none of these guys are those guys. These are the guys that are going to get you to the next guy. And that is a bridge quarterback. So these are all bridge quarterbacks.
So to get there, though, but that's my point. In order to say that, in order to need a next guy, that means you're not winning football games. That's what the bridge means. So it means you've accepted to lose or not have your quarterback win the games. Like Ben Roethlisberger having, comeback game-winning drives, come from behind victories and stuff like that. Might be a thing of the past. And whatever else it is, you just whacked off the desk there. You're just like, what the heck was that? I didn't even know that was there. So... anyways, I don't know. We've got a lot to talk about with the quarterback thing. At least we're on maybe that same page of, because if they draft another guy, then what the heck's the point of having Rudolph or Haskins on the roster or even signing Trubisky? Like it'd have to be completely not sold on any of those guys. And I think the collective quarterback room is so cheap right now. There's nothing that's going to hurt them going forward and giving any of these guys a shot and seeing if they got what it takes. Do I think that is there any improvement over? You got legacy classic Ben Roethlisberger, and then you have like last year Ben Roethlisberger, and some people are already like, well, Mitchell Trubisky is an upgrade over that, or maybe Mason could be an upgrade over that. Maybe his arm's better. Or whatever.
This is what I'm going to say about that.
I don't like that because the decision making and the quick decision making. I don't think those guys make those 2-second throws if the offensive line is trash.
That's the key right there. If the offensive line hasn't been adjusted, which it to a certain extent has, But if the offensive line is the same as last year, none of these guys is an upgrade over last year. None of them.
It'll be just as ugly. I don't know that it can get uglier.
Oh, no, it could get uglier. But, it could have gotten uglier. Just not a lot uglier. But it could have gotten uglier.
Like Minnesota game, for example. They score all those points, or the Chargers. They score all these points late. You won't have that. It'll just be a flat-out blowout. But it'll still be as ugly up until that point, and then like the other team kind of.
You have sacks, fumbles. You have guys, holding the ball too long. You have a lot of other things that can go wrong that didn't go wrong last year. Consistent, right? I'm not going to say Ben didn't sometimes hold the ball too long. I'm not going to say he didn't fumble because he did, but for the most part, he was making better, quicker decisions because he knew he had no choice.
Yeah.
All right. All that being said,
offensive line.
Yes. The Cole deal, I'm okay with that. Doesn't bother me one way or the other. The James Daniel deal, I absolutely love that.
Young, stud, grown ass
man.
I
love that. Potentially, look, he has. This is where I get nervous. Torn pecs make me nervous. That tear is troublesome. But if it's fully healed and he's young, so that's a good thing, then that's a big deal. That's a huge signing for them. So I love that. I love that piece. They do that. You got Chooks back in the mix. Cole comes in. You decide how you're going to maneuver stuff around. Is Kendrick going to be the center? Is Kendrick going to be a guard? Is somebody else going to be the center? Is Dotson somebody that they actually have some doubts about? Maybe because of the way he came in shape, or the shape he came in, or maybe the way he performed a little less consistently in his second season versus his rookie season during spot duty. Look, the offensive line right now is already better than it was, just with the signings that they have. That in and of itself gears towards what they need to be, right? I don't throw the quarterback out of the mix for the moment. This team needs to be a run-first team.
Yeah.
You got a stud in Najee Harris. This needs to the offensive line needs to be remade into what Steelers offensive lines of the past used to be, a bunch of guys who will kick your ass and move you out of the way, right? And maulers who will just do that and clear the road for Najee to do what Najee does. And all you need the quarterback to do is not screw it up.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. I was looking up Mason Cole again because I was in the ballpark. Yeah, he's a sub 300 guy and 6'5". He's not like a 320-pounder or whatever in the same category as Kendrick Green. Do you put both of them on the field at the same time? Or as we were saying just off air a little bit here, and I mentioned on the last show, there's an indictment of Kevin Dotson and some of the rumors of him being out of shape and stuff last training camp. Zach Banner released. We kind of expected that. Chooks Okorafor coming back. We said it could be maybe an either or. Maybe it's a draft pick and Banner. I didn't actually pencil Banner in as anywhere, and I felt has been healthy. Not his fault. A lot of people, I went on a little tirade on Twitter a little bit ago, Brian, you might have missed. People were like, yeah, all right, about time. Yeah, like whatever. The guy got hurt and didn't recover properly. Maybe came back a little too early or wasn't just right. That's not really his fault, and you feel bad about those situations. But at the same time, you got $5 million that you could save and tied up in him, and you still don't know if he's going to be right. It's a business decision. I don't hold that necessarily against him, as the other business decision we'll mention too.
Yeah, no question about that. Excuse me. Look, I'm excited for where this could potentially lead, based on some of the other things which I'm sure we're going to talk about that they have done, and maybe some potential of what they do. This opens things up in the draft, where if the right offensive lineman is there to shore things up, and you add a stud to this group, wow! All of a sudden, you remade your offensive line pretty complete, and. Look, I'm going to tell you, Dan Moore will benefit from having a better veteran lineman next to him who can help protect him. Chooks will benefit from having a better veteran lineman next to him who can help protect him, right? Who can help grind the path. All these guys will improve based on that. So Like I'm extremely encouraged by where the offensive line is headed.
Yeah, and we said Chooks was at least above the line or above board, and his contract still all of these contracts are kind of spelled out to, if you're not very good this year, you're not getting that money.
You won't be here next year.
Yeah, you won't be here. They're all in, like, I don't know that I actually saw Cole's numbers still, but I believe Chooks was like around just under $5 million, 4 and change, higher fours, and so was James Daniels. Which that made me so excited because there's a little smoke to the fire, and you're like, the only thing I'm hoping is that the Steelers don't turn into that Bears team. Though the 2018 team, that was the double doink Cody Parkey deal. Like, they had an opportunity to win a playoff game there. So, things happen. They had a good defense too. So I wanted Eddie Goldman, but I'll settle for what's coming down the line here and what's already come down the line. Overall, they could still add to this in the draft. I think if you pencil any of these guys in right now, maybe you'll be okay. Maybe Green's better in year 2. Maybe the experiment's over. Maybe they try him as a guard. I don't know. I tend to think that the guy who's been there longer, like Dotson, has more of a hot seat, though. It's more of the unknown. It's more of the unknown versus, can Green do this instead, maybe? And they got
it's one of those things you need to light a fire under the young man, right? People get complacent. Oh, I made it. And we saw it. Like, look, I love Lamar Woodley, but dude signed a contract and then went to pop. So, you get that sense. Sometimes people get to a point in life where they're like, okay, I did it. I can relax, right? And he needs a kick in the butt to say, dude, just because you got to start doesn't mean you get to continue to start. You're still a third, fourth round pick, whatever he was, that has to prove it. And you better come in here with a fire under your butt, or somebody's taking your job.
You got to think, if Woodley stuck around and it panned out the way you wanted it to, TJ Watt might not be there on this roster. That'd be overlap there. Bud Dupree more than likely would have never been there, but
right.
Yeah, I don't think so. It depends who they would have had on the other side, because James Harrison leaves and comes back, and some of that was necessitated retirement. It's a whole lot of what ifs, which is an interesting story. Again, then injury, but some of the injuries too. Like, I don't want to necessarily excuse injuries. Zach Banners was in the line of fire. That was part of combat. Lamar Woodley might have been, I'm sitting on the couch eating a couple potato chips and not putting in the right work, and now I go work out and something catastrophic ends up happening. So there's different categories there. I don't want to necessarily give everyone a pass when it comes to injuries. I'm just less likely to dump on somebody because of them. If they can't stay healthy, and then they also can't catch the football like a particular tight end that's currently a free agent, then you could dump on them a little bit more. Who else we got here? There's a lot of defense to talk about. The Steelers, I think I had mentioned they had tendered Marcus Allen and Robert Spillane before, but just reviewing some of the other free agent moves. And then the first one that trickles out, you get a little – and then Dwayne Haskins, of course, too, original round tender. So he signed it already, so he's locked in. And officially, some of these are agreements. You have to understand, free agency, they couldn't actually sign. This stuff couldn't become official in many cases until Wednesday, 4 o'clock. So now that we're here, St. Patrick's Day, Thursday, now guys are starting to sign contracts and do interviews and stuff, like Mitchell Trubisky, Levi Wallace being one of the first. And Levi Wallace underwhelmed me at first here, Brian, because I was like, okay, this is a fine player. This is a guy that's been an underdog his whole life. He's coming over from the Buffalo Bills. He was with Alabama, walked on there, undrafted guy in the NFL, fills in for Tre'Davious White, does pretty well. The Bills are in a situation where, they've got White already, so you're not going to pay this guy. Not to mention, let's put a pause on that, just the mere mention of Buffalo Bills. Did you see that Von Miller contract? Yikes. I
did.
33 years old. I've seen conflicting reports. 45 million, 50-some million guaranteed, 6 years. 6 years! This guy is going to have to be James Harrison version 2.0. I don't know, man.
Look,
that one. And there's people that are still upset about the moves the Steelers are making, You've got one camp that says, hey, they're finally making moves. Yeah, they don't have like all these big contracts over their heads, some things expiring, don't have a lot invested in the quarterback position this year. And then there's the other side that are like, well, these are just still the same, secondhand scrubs that they sign every year. And it's like, don't they make a big move? Like,
not really.
And then they start naming players like Deshaun Watson and stuff. And it's just like,
go away.
Would you like to be in the Cleveland Browns situation right now where you piss off your current quarterback that's in his 5th year, number 1 overall, and he writes a diatribe there, and he was part of maybe these trade talks, and they were going to give up a bunch of number 1s and like a quarter of their cap space between him and Amari Cooper, with Watson, that is.
And Deshaun Watson must have said, I don't want to go to Cleveland.
Well, no, they got rid of OBJ, they got rid of Jarvis Landry, and they signed, Jakeem Grant and Amari Cooper, and they got rid of Austin Hooper, and they got rid of the center, J.C. Treader. And it's like, wow, what's going on there? It's like it's almost the other direction than what the Steelers are going. 2 different trains in different directions, maybe. So, but it's like that's what would have happened with Pittsburgh, maybe as well. Except you don't really have anybody's feelings to hurt in the same kind of process. You're not. Put it this way: the only way I absolutely would have hated that move is because of what you're giving up for it. I think it just handicaps the franchise.
There was zero chance that they were going to trade for Deshaun Watson. Zero. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't, people out there in the world can be like, no, they were interested. I don't believe you. Show me the money. Show me the facts. Show me some documentation other than you in your brain went, I think they should be interested, therefore they are. It's the internet mentality of, I said it, therefore it is true. No, that is not who this franchise has been or would be at all. They had no interest in Deshaun Watson. They were not going to give up their future for Deshaun Watson. And regardless of the fact that, no charges were filed, he still has civil liabilities that are going to come up. He has potential suspensions that could come up. He has potential issues. They weren't going there. Just weren't going there.
Yeah, it's important to note just because he hasn't had any actual, let's say, outside the civil courts, forgive me the other word I'm looking for, criminal charges. Doesn't mean that his employer or the NFL in general isn't going to take other action as well. And I didn't mean to go back and jump all over that. I don't know if you caught Zaccadonia was on here the other day.
Oh, was he? I didn't caught it.
Oh, you missed it. We had a pretty good long talk about it. It's still relevant info if you want to tune in and check that out. Yeah, made his debut. So if he's listening, he's smiling. I think he's watched it like 5 times, showed his mom, took it over to the neighbors. The neighbors, I think they're older. They don't have like smartphones and Wi-Fi.
He got one of those blow up screens for his backyard. It's like, projecting it in the backyard and just going, everybody look at me on the YouTube. I'm on the internet. I'm famous.
You got to get your hair on point now. He's got the best hair on the podcast, dude. And I know there isn't much of it's like maybe a 2-horse race right now. I was never part of that, but Von Miller, I'm just trying to say that's the type of contract that it's like, is Von Miller still the same Von Miller? It's worth like $130 million or whatever for 6 years. It's like, holy cow, man. And you look at what the Steelers are doing. Levi Wallace. And I said I was disappointed initially with Levi Wallace, not because it's Levi Wallace, because I really wanted Ahkello Witherspoon back. And now we got news that Ahkello Witherspoon's going to come back. And both of these dudes are like 2 years, $8 million. Sutton's contract last year was like 2 years, $9 million. And again, this isn't an indictment on Sutton. We saw when Joe Hayden was hurt, and then when he came back, maybe he wasn't up to full speed, or they wanted to kind of handle him with the white glove treatment, put him on a pitch count. He would come in where they would move, with a nickel package, for example, something more DB heavy. They were playing Witherspoon and Sutton on the outside. Prior to that, slide Sutton over to nickel corner. So it'll be interesting to see how they handle and manage that with the corners that going in this year, but it makes you feel a lot better than having your primary backups being Justin Lane, and because we still don't know anything, we got to assume that ship sailed because James Pierre is playing over him, and we know James Pierre's ship has sailed. He may come to camp, and that's about as far as that might go if he's like the 5th or 6th corner that they keep on the depth chart there.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm very encouraged. I wanted Ahkello Witherspoon back as well. I'm happy to see that may come to fruition. I'm going to say this: the free agent signing stuff has been so whack this year with all the flips Oh, Randy Gregory's staying in Dallas. No, he's not. He's in Denver.
Yeah.
Oh, he's staying here. Oh, no, he's not over here. I'm like, what the hell? But, at the same time, that generally doesn't happen to the Steelers unless you're that guy from New England who just wants to make New England give a better offer or something.
He didn't really agree, but they had said, you go on the plane, the contract's ripped up because they knew he was going to try and use it for leverage for a better deal with Belichick.
Yeah, absolutely.
But the secondary was, definitely a priority.
Yeah, and I feel like they've addressed that to a certain extent. Yeah, I get it. They didn't go out and get the top, but they aren't going to pay $80 million for a quarterback either, or a cornerback. I'm trying to say it correctly. Either one of them. Yeah, they're not doing
CBDB, whatever.
Yeah, they're not going to do that in free agency, and nor should they, because again, you can't make all the other moves that you're making. You're trying to put together a roster that is one that can compete, right? Whether they come out of this as Super Bowl contenders or whether they are just a decent team that can compete will yet to be seen. People, you just don't know. So until that happens, but that's what they're trying to do, right? Put together a roster that they think can compete to try and get them where they want to go. And you cannot do that with the number of holes they have. If you go, well, okay, let me look at the calculator here. We got this much money. That guy will cost, $5 million less than this much money, but he's the best. Well, screw it. Let's just do that. And we'll use the little bit we have left to try and fill the 7 other problems that we have.
No, not 7 other problems. You're going to be like a team that you don't even have a 53 on the roster. You're going to have some guys playing double duty, and not because they're talented enough to be like another Deion Sanders, who was an okay wide receiver. That was kind of gimmicky, but great special teamer, though. Kick and punt returner in addition to being a Hall of Fame corner. But, yeah, the corners, I mean, I see if you agree with this, and I put this out there on the Twitterverse as well. It reminds me a lot of, like, Deshae Townsend, Will Gay, Ike Taylor, Bryant McFadden type combinations when the Steelers had those real hard-hitting and Super Bowl level defenses in the late 2000s and late 2000s, early 2010s, and I feel like that's where they're headed right now. You're providing that Stephon Tuitt is not only returning but will be back up to that level. Alu, I'm cool with even at 35. Now you mentioned like they're not going to go after like J.C. Jackson. Stephon Gilmore is going to be 32 this year. He's already 31. Why are you going to pay a boatload of money for somebody that's not potentially long-term? They do have a hole at safety still. There's 2 moves I still want to see, but there was...
I think one's going to happen.
Okay, let's talk about it. Honey Badger.
I think it's going to happen.
Honey Badger. Yeah, I think they might have to restructure a little bit. I was doing some quick math. Neil Coulong, who's, if you've seen his name around with the various wire properties and stuff, we were talking back and forth about it because I think the adjusted cap was like $35 million. Over the cap had Steelers at like 28.8 or something like that. Somebody else had put out last weekend 35 with rollover and the other money from the previous year that they didn't use. They're still going to need some space in order to sign rookies and for injuries and stuff like that too. So they're still going to.
How much did they gain by releasing Joey Joe?
Well, that was the point. With Banner and Joe Schobert, they would have been up with all the news and everybody that we've mentioned, other than Witherspoon up to this point yesterday, would have been 35. It got about 13 back because Show is just under. We'll just call it 8. It was like 7.8. And Joe Schobert, we didn't mention yet. In case you didn't know, I think everybody's been pretty tuned in if you're paying attention to us at least. Steelers release him because they signed Myles Jack.
Myles Jack.
Going to get to that in a second. Both the other names I didn't mention yet was intentional because I'm sitting over here like Beavis, like just like ready to light things on fire and go crazy fire. So it's like if you get the Honey Badger, I'm gonna like run straight to Pittsburgh like Forrest Gump or something. I'm not even gonna stop. I'm not gonna sleep. I'm not gonna eat. And I'm just going to sleep outside Heinz Field until, well, that's it, provided they have training camp there this year. We'll see.
Yeah, I'm going to say this. This is what I'm going to say. All right. I've said this before, and nobody ever wants to go to a game with me anyway, except you. So this is what we'll end up doing. This is what I'm going to do. If they sign Honey Badger, then one of our listeners in the comments, you'll have to do it because I don't have time to read our comments.
I don't read them all
figure
the
out,
time anyways. They're
I know.
negative.
We'll figure out. Somebody contact us, and I will get one of our listeners will go to the game with me next year on one of my season tickets. One of you.
One. There can only be one, like the Highlander.
There can be only one. That's correct.
I'm not saying Honey Badger. Now, just these sitting on the market, and you have some of the deals that have been made, like the Saints made a deal, and the Saints guy went to the Ravens for a big deal.
Cam is recruiting.
That's fine with me.
Cam is recruiting.
Now, he's 29.
When I don't care.
But he's got a few years good left in him, and he's a very strong player. It would be very exciting to see him there.
I heard a little rumor that could happen. That's all I'm going to say.
Little rumor. Okay. Brian's got his sources. I like it.
Sources are telling me it could happen today.
Oh, all right. All right. Well, we'll see if it's dated by this. But we may have to scrap the whole thing and come back and talk about that. I'd be excited about it. Now, that's not to say if they don't make that move and they're able to bring back Terrell Edmonds $7-8 million a year.
I won't whine. I won't be crying.
No, he's still above the line. He's like bringing back Chooks. There's no problem with that. But if you got somebody that's, I just wonder how Tyrann Mathieu and Minka Fitzpatrick would coexist in the same environment. And I don't think that's necessarily as much a problem if you got Cam Sutton, who's floating around and kind of playing the Yankee or Joker or whatever that ends up playing back at safety sometimes, playing deep. And they send another guy on the blitz. So it would be very interesting. They're both ball hawks. You got Witherspoon's been creating splash, but so is Edmonds. Edmonds got, some good stops, tackles for loss, a rare sack. They don't blitz him often, shutting down tight ends. I would not be disappointed. And I think it also helps in both cases. These guys are still on the market because as it keeps going, guys don't have the bargaining chips that they used to, and teams are spending the money, and now there's not money to be spent everywhere else, and it kind of devalues their asking price, which is good because, like I said, the Steelers don't have a lot there, but they could do some more of this cap magic now. They'll probably, with all of these contracts, they've gotten guys to take a very low first year. Even Myles Jack, which I was very surprised about. Not only getting him, but for what they got him for. So we'll talk about that in a second. But just if they get if they get the Honey Badger in there, and I'm assuming he's going to be at least a $10 million a year guy. That's my assumption. They could maybe get Cam Hayward or Tuitt or TJ Watt. Those are the big contracts, and shuffle some money around and create some more space. They haven't done any restructuring yet. They've only done the releases. So Joe Schobert, in the case of, let's talk about my other guy, my king, real quick. Who was my other priority aside from Edmonds and Witherspoon? And it was Montravius Adams. And he's a depth guy, 2 years.
Yep.
Kind of cheap. I think it was like $6 million or something like that. So
I like it. 5.
Very,
very. 5.
Yeah, maybe. It wasn't much. It was like 2-ish a year. Very happy with that. He balled out, came out of nowhere. Yep. And that's good. That's good insurance having him in Wormley behind a 35-year-old Tyson Alualu. So I like that a lot. A lot. Now, Myles Jack. This one had me shoot through the roof because it's like one of those ones where you see, and this won't count against the compensatory formula, although the Steelers got a lot of stuff going because the Jaguars released him. This wasn't a contract expiration.
Right.
So they pick him up, or if they would have done the same with, like, let's say, Bobby Wagner. But Bobby Wagner, we were talking about this, and we were like, how much money, this and that. We didn't get to talk because Myles Jack was released, and within like a day, he said he'll be wearing black and gold. And I talked about, Joe Schobert, 7.8. That's what you're going to save. You got to replace him with somebody at least as good as him or better for that kind of money or in that ballpark. Because if you're going to use that money and you're going to get Wagner and you're going to pay Wagner $16 million, that's two Joe Schoberts.
Yeah.
I don't think it's necessarily worth it. You don't know age, this and that. Myles Jack at $8 million, which I don't think he's making $8 million in the first season either. I think his cap hit's lower than that. Holy cow. And there's people trying to say he's washed, Brian. This was a guy we were all over wanting him back when he was drafted. He was there in the first round, ends up going second round to the Jacksonville Jaguars. Tackling machine. As a guy that could go sideline to sideline. If Devin Bush gets his act together and he's recovered from his injury, that is going to look extremely well when you look at the overall Steelers defensive lineup. We still don't know who the other safety is going to be yet, But even if it's Edmonds or, God forbid, let's say they get the Honey Badger put in there, holy cow. It's got to make you feel a lot better because this defense is going to make it hopefully easier for the offense to do their thing regardless of the quarterback.
Absolutely. I mean, that's the path that this team has right now, right? They're not going to be an offensive juggernaut. That's just very clear from the get-go. You don't have some key pieces in place to be that team. So you're going to be a team that probably can put together some offense, but not at, a KC rate or, one of those wheeling, dealing, high-flying kind of offenses that just scores 40 points a game or some crazy number. That's not going to be this team. So this team is going to have to depend the way it's almost always done on defense and then consistent offense that doesn't make mistakes, right? Which is going to be leaning more heavily on the running game, using the passing game as a complement as opposed to the primary outlet that it has been the past few years because they couldn't run. So if the defense can be the defense, right, with all the pieces in place, if Stephon Tuitt can be Stephon Tuitt of old, which isn't that old, it's only a year or so ago, but a guy who could get 10 plus sacks, a guy who can get consistent pressure, a guy who can help TJ Watt next year break the damn record completely, because you cannot just put one guy on Stephon Tuitt.
No, just look at all of that. And I'm going to tell you, like I said, if Jordan Davis ends up being there somehow, and you add him to that mix, it's just,
oh my goodness,
that is going to be a nightmare for opposing offensive lines. And like I said, this is the arms race. We're not even talking about Alex Highsmith. And Alex Highsmith went off with that Seattle game on. So it was already 4 or 5 games into the season where, they were still monkeying around with, the Melvin Ingram experiment and how can we use him and 3 linebackers and all this mess and TJ being hurt sometimes. Provided these guys all are healthy and good to go, it's looking really, really good because Highsmith could be a double-digit sack guy. If they put too much attention on any of these guys, Watt, Hayward, Tuitt, or Highsmith, and you're not including all the other guys that are going to be in this mix and rotation and maybe keeping some of these bodies healthy. And I had a dream last night, too, that they signed an edge guy. And I can't remember who it was, but when it comes back to me, I'll put that out there. I had a dream, and I was just like, oh, my goodness. And it was somebody veteran that I wasn't thinking of, and, of course, I've forgotten it because that's how dreams work. That's all the more I can remember about it. And I was probably somewhere like in a boba tea bar or something that I would never be in real life because that's how dreams work, too. But we'll see. And it may have even been Honey Badger might have been on there. And let me tell you right now, Myles Jack, I think, is going to be a jersey purchase this year for me. And if Matthew gets signed, I think he's an instant purchase. I'll get immediately excited over some of the names that are here. And we'll see what they do with the wide receivers. By the time maybe somebody listens to this, maybe we'll get some more news. But Juju, same kind of category. The market is not moving for him. And I wouldn't mind seeing something longer term done with him and bring him back, Ray McLeod. But I do think, as always, the Steelers will end up drafting a wide receiver at some point and adding to the mix. So I'm not overly concerned with the wide receiver room right there. But what we're talking about now, Brian, is that we're not focused on just the center. And a lot of people are speculating. We've already talked about now this opens them up to be able to go get a quarterback and let them sit and learn for you. And I'm just like, do they love anybody in this draft or I don't know. I would trust Kevin Colbert if he makes that move. But then if he's going out the door, does the next guy trust that guy just as much? And the only way you could speculate that if it's Omar Khan or Brandon Hunt that end up taking the reins and they're already in the building. You know what I mean? So I wonder about that. Would they pull the trigger on that kind of move ahead of time? Defense, I'm okay with that. I don't have to go straight up offensive line.
I'm okay with offensive line. I'm okay with defense. I'm not going to be okay with quarterback. I'm just telling you right now.
I'm not going to be okay with wide receiver first round either.
Oh, I won't be. Neither would I.
No. And corners, I don't trust. Safety, I might trust. The Steelers have had such a bad track record with drafting corners. I would prefer to sign Levi Wallace and Ahkello Witherspoon in that. I mean, Sutton's been the only guy since like Keenan Lewis, really, that's been. You think about it.
Well, I mean, Ahkello was a pretty darn good corner.
But
for a
Ike
long
was drafted
time.
Before. Ike was drafted
2003.
Before Lewis. Yeah, Lewis came after that.
2003.
But I mean, like,
but that's still a Colbert
Allen,
draft. That's still a Colbert draft.
Ike was like what, 6th or 7th rounder too.
I thought 5th, but maybe.
But he's a day 3 guy, pretty much. At that point, I will find that out. It's a good trivia question.
They have had problems drafting corners. There's no doubt about it. But the problem is just it's hit or miss, just like every other damn position.
It's true.
They just have missed on it more than anything else. That means the karma wheel is going to swing the other way at some point, and they're going to hit. So I'm okay because it's a potential position of need, but it's not as big a need right now as it may have been if you have Witherspoon and Levi Wallace there, right? They still have to pay attention to it, but if they don't like what they see right now, then that's fine. They don't need to. It really does open the first round up to be whatever they need it to be. And if you go in assuming Tuitt's going to be back and be healthy, then unless somebody like a Jordan Davis falls down close enough where you go, shoot, we can't not go for this. You don't have to go defensive line. If the center from Iowa falls close enough, you can go ahead and do it. You know what I'm saying? But you don't have to.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And if none of that happens, then look, here's what you're not going to do. You're not going to draft a running back again in the first round.
No.
You're probably not going to draft a wide receiver in the first round. You're probably not drafting a quarterback in the first round where they're drafting. But it just opens, and you're not drafting a tight end, right? Here's the givens. No running back, no tight end is going to happen in the first round.
No punter, no kicker, no long snapper.
All right. Yeah, no punter, no kicker, no long snapper.
No love for special teams.
Anything else could potentially occur.
I'm laughing. I'm looking at some tweets back and forth with Jim Wexel, and it's trailed off of something that I tweeted out with the potential starting defense with all of these names plugged in now, and then TBD for the other safety spot. And Jim had said something. He's going back and forth, Chad Roeder and Dave Damashek. And it says, Jim says, here's the thing. Between us, I can't grip those NFL balls. I dread them bouncing me during practice. Hand measures in at 8.5. It's my own personal issue. Also, it would be totally Steelers to pass on a star Pitt quarterback for a defensive tackle. And Dave Damashek says, yeah, right. Like there's any historical proof they'd ever do such a thing. That's fantastic. And the only reason I have this up, I wasn't ignoring you, is like, I got to know if something else happens here. I'm like, hitting refresh and everything else because I would hate to miss it.
Don't want to miss the news.
Don't want to miss any more news. Man, I'll tell you what, so far, so good. Had someone asking me here, I'll mention it in case they're listening to the pod. Bills released Cole Beasley. Think he's an option over re-signing Juju. He is a slot guy. I don't know. I don't know what Cole Beasley's going to want for a contract. I don't know that the Steelers are in, besides bringing their own guys back, I don't know that they're in the market for somebody else. There's still Anthony Miller floating around, who also another of those he was on that 2018 Bears team as well. So now you got like 3 of them. It's starting to scare me. It's like the reverse. The guys used to leave the Steelers to go to the Bears. Who all was there? There was Cordell Stewart, for example, and I'm trying to think that one of the running
Jesse
backs
James
ended over there too. No, he was the Lions. Is he there? But he's there now. Yeah,
Yeah.
Lions by way of Detroit. So yeah, it's interesting. I'm missing somebody else. Somebody will fill me in on it. That's not that important. But Brian, I'm excited. James Daniels, that's a dude, and they didn't have to break the bank like. I know there's Brandon Scherf. Did you see what he's getting in Jacksonville or Laken Tomlinson? Oh, yeah. These guys with I think the Jets. I think he went to the Jets. Those are some crazy moves. I can't necessarily. I think the Ravens made a good move with Morgan Moses, but I don't know that the Steelers had to make that same move versus penciling in Dan Moore, keeping Chooks Corfor. So I'm okay with that. Lyle Collins, I don't know. He could be washed. That guy's making a boatload of money. And if he were that great, the Cowboys. They're getting a little gutted there, but you know what I mean? They don't get rid of these guys.
He hasn't been that good the last couple of years.
Exactly.
He's a potential Hall of Fame candidate, player, but he hasn't been that. You get to a certain age, it just drops off, man, and you aren't worth the money you're going to get nailed for. So, no.
Yep, and so James Daniels, I think that's a definite win. I'm excited about it. If it ends up turning out wrong, don't point fingers at me. It'll be okay. And then it'll be okay. Some of these we get excited over, and then it's like, poo. You know what I mean? But that's life. That's the way it works. And these players become available. Either they outprice themselves from their other teams, or their other teams don't value them because they hadn't been playing well. And let me see. Who else am I missing? James Daniels, Myles Jack, definite dude, definite get. And I'm very happy about bringing back guys like Montrevious Adams, for example, and Ahkello Witherspoon. Let's see what they do with a few other spots, and then we could really start getting into the draft and what their needs are. I just wish everybody would already shut up about the quarterback position. I don't think they're ever going to shut up. It's going to take years. It's going to be like Polamalu, Keith Miller, but worse, dude, because it's quarterback.
They could draft Kenny Pickett, and the day after they drafted him, people will be like, well, we have to draft a quarterback next year because he stinks.
Yeah. I know. And people are going to be out of their mind, too. Let's just say that does happen. Most of the scenarios now are people are thinking, the bridge, boss, the bridge. And it's like, that means that player that gets drafted, Malik Willis, Kenny Pickett, that means they're sitting. They're QB3. They're holding a clipboard. They're not playing. And that's been the problem. That's been my actual problem with the Mason Rudolph thing. Didn't have a quarterbacks coach when he was playing. Randy Fichtner was doing double duty in 2019. Most people do not like Randy Fichtner. They don't like the guys he was playing with, like Dante Moncrief. But that's the other thing that people don't realize was when he was drafted, he's QB3. Josh Dobbs was the backup in 2018. So he wasn't getting those reps at scout team or running the other offenses. And then he has a camp where he's battling for that backup position and wins it. And all of a sudden you're the starter in week 2. You know what I mean? There was like no breathing room for actual development there. So, that's why I give a little bit of pass there. And then again, we'll see. Trubisky, his last year as a full starter, the last 4 or 5 games, real sharp, real good. But before that, he got benched because it wasn't so good. So you don't know which guy you're getting there. We already know it's going to be inconsistent. It's not going to be what we're used to. So let's see. And I don't want to add another quarterback into this situation where they're sitting there. Like, I like the sit for a year development thing. That works for some guys like Patrick Mahomes. Sitting out and not playing for a full year doesn't work for everyone. And putting guys into the line of fire doesn't work for everyone either. So, I mean, I think people would think as soon as the guy's drafted, then all of a sudden it's, quarterback battle between Trubisky and whoever it is. And I don't know that Mike Tomlin would necessarily do that. And for that reason, I'd much rather the draft capital be used on someone that actually plays week 1 and can maybe be a 5 to 10 year starter. That's why I've been saying offensive line, defensive line. That'd be nice. At 20, that's where you're finding, like DeCastro or something like that. I think that would be very nice. So, and then Cam Hayward. Cam Hayward was like, what, pick 30, 31?
31.
Was that the year that after they lost?
I think he was 31. Yeah, I think after they lost to Green Bay.
I think so too. And it's like, hey, I could live with that for sure. So, Brian, let's put a bow on this one. Nice having you here. Hopefully everything we said isn't irrelevant in a few moments, as always. I always bring that up, but it's like, hey, I hope people still enjoy listening because I think most of the points that are made are still valid. It's not just like, listen, breaking news that somebody else actually broke. So maybe a little bit more insight.
Yeah, we try.
Go Team Honey Badger. That's not any indictment. I like Edmonds too. I had my Edmonds jersey on the other day because I thought maybe it's the last time I get to wear it. So I'll put it on again if they ended up re-signing him. We'll see.
I'm all in for the Honey Badger.
I do like me the Honey Badger. It sounds like you're from a certain Vandelay Industries, importer, exporter.
All in on the Honey Badger. I'm all in on the Honey Badger.
For our Seinfeld friends out there, we're starting to age ourselves with that. Other people are like, these guys nuts.
We have to start doing Big Bang Theory quotes instead of Seinfeld. And now I don't even know what a current sitcom is.
No, I don't really know. Maybe stump me. I was going to say something that's streaming more than likely. And Jason Bateman immediately pops into my brain for whatever reason. And then it popped over to Ozark, which pops over to, was it like one of the NFL insiders on NFL Network was saying, who does the books for the Green Bay Packers? Is that Ruth Langmore? If you don't know Ozark, it's money laundering. So cooking the books.
I watched the first 2 seasons. I didn't like it.
I was going to say, well, at least you gave it a chance. I'll at least say that. So
I went one season beyond what I went with Breaking Bad.
And with that, folks, have another drink on me. Get an Uber if you need it on this fine St. Patrick's Day. Take care of yourself. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. If you get a little too loopy, listen to the show twice. That's always good in supporting the brand. So otherwise, Brian, man, thanks for being here. Always good. Always glad to have you and taking your time out of your day. And
Absolutely.
I guess we'll sign off with a little more heartfelt, because we know, even though it's a nice party day for some folks out there, you got to be safe out there. So as always, everyone out there, my name's Joe. His name's Brian. Until next time, be safe. We mean it. Maybe a little bit. You could shenanigans. You could do the shenanigans, so you don't have to be as good. And definitely take care of yourself so we can catch you later.
We would like to thank you for listening and remind our listeners to follow us on social media and our website, www.steelcityunderground.com.